The Dibley Diaries for this week is about Jesus saying, "I am the vine." And for the rural challenge for that, I want to think about how we stay connected to each other in our communities, and which communities do we want to stay connected to. So rural villages might have very small numbers of people. They might just have 20, 30, 40, 50 houses, some of them very small populations. So if there is some sort of focus, they may stay well connected to each other. But then as church communities, we are encouraged to group together so that we have larger populations who can work together, who will maybe share a stipendiary vicar or might share other ministry resources. So how do we encourage people to be connected to each other? One thing which all vicars like to do is to have services where people gather together. But the really difficult thing is trying to get the congregations to travel to those services to other places. How do we maintain those connections? Now, one of the strange things for us, which came out of COVID, for where I was working at that time, was actually having to do Zoom services all together, the whole benefice, meant that people felt they kind of knew each other because they'd seen each other on the Zoom calls. Different people had done readings, different people had led the prayers, different people had done the talks, different people had led music in their own homes which we could listen to. So actually, that was an amazing way of joining people together because they didn't have to physically move. But it is a real challenge for us. If we're trying to work in more than one village, because the village might be small, it might be needing to share things, it's a good thing to be connected into larger things as well. How do we do that for the benefit of in the Church of England, of our benefices? How do we group together? How do we encourage people to come together to work and be connected into something bigger than just their small rural church? Thought for the week this week is based on John chapter 15, where Jesus talks about being the vine and about staying connected to him and staying connected to the Father. And this idea of connection is really important. We know it's quite a good analogy, although we don't have huge numbers of vineyards in our country. We know what happens when you cut something off a plant, that it kind of dies and comes away. And we know that bits and plants need to stay connected to the ground, to the roots, to the other parts of the plant. So when Jesus says, "I am the vine and you are the branches," he wants us to stay connected to him. That's a challenge for all of us, even vicars. How do we stay connected to Jesus? What is it that helps us to feel most connected to Jesus? Some time ago, I was visiting my spiritual director. This is kind of quite a long time ago. And she said to me, "Where is it that you feel most connected, or where you have encountered Jesus recently?" And I explained that one of the places I had felt that I had encountered Jesus was at a youth worship event, which I'd been with my then youth group, which I then now no longer had. And she said to me, "Well, then you should just go there. You should just go there." And I was thinking, how can I just go there without any youths with me? But she encouraged me to go, and I went a few times. It was fine. It was open to adults on their own as well. And I was just like, this was really good advice. This was somewhere where I felt that I'd really connected with Jesus, and I went there again. And I guess it's tied in with those things, altars which Abraham built. When Abraham went on his journey with his family, he knew where God was. When he built an altar, he knew where God was, and it was part of Abraham's journey into monotheism, so that when Abraham moved to a new place, if God was there, he built an altar because he knew that he could go back to that place. If his worst fears were realised and God wasn't in the new place that he arrived at, he could go back and find the marker of the last place where he had found God. And we all have places like that in our lives, or things in our lives which do that for us. So we know that there are things that we do which are places where we can connect to God. They may not be holy places, stereotypically holy places. It might be walking, it might be going to a particular place, it might be spending some more time in the shower if that's where there's space and time for God to talk to you. But I would encourage you all to do that. How are you going to stay connected to Jesus? How are you going to stay connected to Jesus? Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. It is our job to stay connected in that way to Jesus. The Dibley moment of the week this week is about something which happened to a friend of mine who was an elderly lady, and she had an offer. Someone was going to come and help do some gardening for her. She said yes, that's fine, but she wasn't very well, so she just let the person get on with it, and she came out later on to find that this person had very carefully dead-headed a bush by cutting all the dead flowers off it, and that person hadn't realised that actually it was a blackcurrant bush, and so that they cut all the branches off it that were going to create blackcurrants later in the year. So that was a bit of a disappointment for the blackcurrant harvest that year. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week, and that you are able to stay connected to Jesus, strongly connected to the vine, so that you can grow and bear fruit.